Training to ride 100 miles, a century ride. This is the third of 4 videos in which we're taking you through from how to cycle 50 miles to cycling a century. In this one, we're going almost all the way.
Our first 2 videos took us from riding 50 miles to 70 miles by gradually increasing our long ride by 5 miles each week. The intensity of our repetitions also increased, although 1 week in 4 we backed off a little to allow for adaptation. The third ride was to keep our legs turning. All this we explained in the first video. In our second video, Sean shared his system for food and drink. He uses 1 water bottle and stops for real food, but that might not work where you live, so we also considered carrying extra food. Sean and I both recommend porridge to start the day. He uses a microwave, I soak mine overnight in a pan. I'm sure you've discovered the trick of laying out all your kit for a fast start. That includes having the bike ready to go. Because starting early means you'll be past halfway before the lunchtime hunger pangs kick in. The app Willy Weather is great for showing times of first and last light, probably more useful than sunrise and sunset. All that has become increasingly important as long rides grew. I almost always ride alone because there are no other cyclists who like this sort of riding in our small village. Sean is spoilt for choice.
It's very much a personal choice as to whether or not you do your first century ride on your own or with other people. My advice, I'd do it with someone else, probably 1, 2, maybe 3 other people. When you're in a group, there's a bit of a team spirit, you can help each other, you can draft a little bit as well, and that all helps you get through it. When it comes to choosing who you ride with though, for your first century ride, it needs a bit of thought. Now, I have 2 ride partners who I ride with regularly who demonstrate this dilemma perfectly. On the one hand, I've got John, a good friend, nice guy, but on a road bike, he, by his own admission, takes a bit of pleasure in seeing other people suffer. Now, as road cyclists, I'm sure we all know people like this. At the end of the day, it's a bit of fun and games on your weekend cafe ride, but when it comes to your first century ride, those people are not the type of individuals that you want on this ride. On the other hand, I've got Alan. Now, Alan is happiest if you're happy. He will bike at whatever pace you like to make sure you get round with a smile on your face. He's the sort of guy that can put tyres back on with no levers. That's the type of person that you want on your first century ride.
Of course, things don't always go smoothly, and I don't just mean the weather. It looks like the depths of winter, but I'm recording this early April after Easter. And a couple of weeks ago, I tore my calf muscle on my right leg. I was just doing too much of a run after having quite a lot of a bike ride. And I'll not go into details about that, but the point is, things happen, life happens, and you really haven't got to worry too much about that. The cardiovascular fitness is there, so I've been doing recovery and gradually returning some distance, but even now when I should be riding around 55, 60 miles, at best I'm doing 25. But the whole point is, don't panic and realize that the fitness will return. Because weather is fickle, it's worth having several route options for your century. My important considerations are places to resupply, my relative fitness, the weather forecast, and the available daylight. Daylight makes a huge difference, so that's one of the reasons we're waiting until the end of May to ride, when there are more hours of daylight. I'm going to quickly show you 3 rides and talk through important considerations. The planning app doesn't matter. Komoot, Google, Strava, Ride with GPS, they all work fine. I'm going to use Komoot, and I'll plan using bike touring as opposed to road riding setting, although it doesn't really matter which you use. Bike touring will deliberately overestimate how long the rides will take, so I have a bigger time buffer, which is handy given the road surfaces around here. If I want a more realistic time, I'll switch to road cycling. But here's the thing. Don't think about the time as hours, think about the number as representing effort. A flat ride will be faster and take less time than a hilly ride, and that time difference represents less effort, and that might help you decide which ride to tackle. By having a few planned, you can make a last-minute decision about which to ride. Okay, first ride. From the Highland village where I live, I could ride what I've previously called the best century ride in Scotland. I made a series of 3 videos about this ride, so clearly I like it. But it involves 2 ferries, here and here, and that inevitably means delays and hanging around. So I feel this ride is best done in the height of summer, when there is loads of daylight. The lesson in this case is the most scenic might not be the right choice. The loop of our local peninsula seems a better alternative, adding an out and back to Fort William to make the 100 miles and to buy food and drink. There's less ascent too, largely helped by flat roads on the east side of this loop. It's 40 minutes quicker, so thinking of time as effort, it's easier too. The main road might be busy with tourists, but I like this option, because it's a journey, it goes somewhere, and I know for sure I can get food in town. This is probably my favourite option. However, if the weather turns bad and I still want to ride, then I might want the easiest century I can find. That is probably the out and back around that flattish eastern side of the previous loop. 1,000 feet of ascent less, it's 30 minutes quicker. And again, if we think about time as effort, that's a saving of around 5%, and my food stops are unchanged. True, going out and back along the same roads, which I do know well, could be a bit boring, so this will probably be my bad weather option, or the route I'll pick if I'm feeling undertrained. The key point is that I have already sorted and planned these options and more.
Simon's right. Try and have a few options ready so you can change things depending on the weather. Also, try and avoid, for the last third or so of your ride, heading straight into a wind. If that's unavoidable, then try and meander. Look for natural protection like trees, hillsides, that sort of thing. What you really don't want to do is, for the last part of your ride, be heading straight into the teeth of a wind.
The next 3 weeks will see the long rides build from 75 to 85 miles, and then 1 week before our century, we do something called a taper. I'll get Sean to explain that.
When it comes to tapering, you're essentially trying to achieve 2 competing aims. On the one hand, you're looking to recover and relax as much as possible, so that when you start the century ride, you have lots of energy and you feel like a caged animal, as it were. However, on the other hand, you want to make sure that your inactivity during your taper period doesn't allow the body to become comfortable and accustomed to being inactive. Tapering is very personal, so therefore it is impossible, frankly, to prescribe a tapering structure which works for everybody. But in a challenge such as this, I would be suggesting that in the week before your century ride, you cycle once, maybe twice, but no more than, say, 90 minutes in each ride, and make sure that you fully recover from every ride.
And that's about it. We've covered an awful lot in this series of videos, from progressive overload and planning your ride to nutrition and ride partners. The rest, well, you have to do yourself. Whether I'm going to be able to do my century ride in the next 4 weeks depends on how well my injury heals. Hopefully I will. But if not, I hope you have a fantastic ride. Do let us know how you got on. And if you've enjoyed this, please give us a thumbs up. And we'll see you next time. Bye.